Hey everybody, KMO here, and I forget how I disseminate particular messages. I don't know if I said it here in a video or just on the podcast, but my plan was to be in Washington, D.C. for the inauguration. That's not going to happen now. I am still heading down almost to D.C. I'm going to make it as far south as Baltimore, where next Monday I'm going to take about a 2.5 hour walking tour of abandoned industrial infrastructure, basically the corpse of the body that used to provide, working class prosperity in that city and in this country, more generally speaking. So if you're in Baltimore next Monday, if you want to hook up with me and a few friends of the C-Realm, let me know. Comment here or send me email, kmo@crealm.com. About DC, Washington, all that, there comes a time when, if you're wise, in my opinion, you don't know what to hope for. Like Trump, impeachment. It's like a week until Joe Biden will be president. So, what's the point in rushing through this, this impeachment of Donald Trump? Well, part of the point is just condemnation of the man, just, to score points against him. But really, I think what people have in mind is prevent him from running in 2024. The next 4 years are very, very different if Trump is threatening to primary whoever the Republicans decide to put up, because the Republicans hate Trump. The Republican base, the voters, for the most part, love Trump. But the Republican elites, the lawmakers, the people who fund the think tanks, the whole Powell movement, Republican establishment, the Chamber of Commerce style Republicans, and most especially, the defense contractor, neocon, permanent war Republicans, they hate Trump. They hate him. They want him gone. So what a position for the Republican Party to be in, to have this figure who ostensibly is on your team and who is loved, just absolutely loved and adored, by tens of millions of working class Republican voters, who, many of whom I know subscribe to some really bizarre fantasies about, Donald Trump's role in the world. If Trump cannot possibly run in 2024, then it's just a very different landscape. But what will be the result? What will be the downstream consequences of either preventing him from running or allowing him to run? What are the consequences for the Republicans? What are the consequences for the Democrats? What are the consequences for the country? I don't know. I don't know what the consequences will be, so I don't know what to hope for. So, my natural inclination, when on September 11th, 2001, I was in bed, I was in Washington State, so, 3 hours behind the East Coast, and my brother calls me, and he told me about planes hitting the World Trade Center. And I thought, in the moment, just in my half asleep sort of response to that, my inclination was to minimize it or to make a joke of it. And it wasn't until I got up and I went to the computer and I watched the footage of the planes hitting, the towers hadn't collapsed at this time, that it really struck me. Well, the same thing kind of happened with the attack on the Capitol building last week. I tuned into the media and I heard people talking about a coup and insurrection and, an attempt to overthrow the government. And I thought all of that was absurd. I thought that was just histrionic bullshit. But, the more I dwell on it, the man did, with, forethought, draw people, his supporters to the Capitol on that day with the intention of sending them over there to cause chaos. Now, a coup attempt or, an attempt to change the electoral outcome by means of a mob, do we judge it differently depending on how competently it was executed? Is it just a joke because the person who perpetrated it is a joke? And, this is not a rhetorical question. Intuitively, it seems like a half-assed, doomed to fail, Keystone Cop style attempt at coercing lawmakers into not certifying the election. It seems like the incompetent attempt shouldn't carry the same penalties as, a competent attempt that might actually succeed. But why? That's not any sort of principle in jurisprudence. If you're accused of murder Unless you are so stupid that you're clinically, retarded. Then you catch some leniency, a bit of understanding and leeway. But if you're just a dumbass and you do a contemptible thing, you get the same punishment as somebody who is more competent and may well have succeeded at that exact same crime. And I'm not saying that there is any moral principle at work here that we should defer to. I just don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, if Trump can run in 24 as opposed to if he can't. And one other thing, this is from Sagar and Crystal on Rising this morning, which I haven't finished yet, but something that Trump voters will respond to is culture war issues. And with Joe Biden as the Democratic nominee, as much as I think he is inadequate to the challenges that beset us, he is not a polarizing figure because nobody believes, nobody except the absolute fringe, QAnon attuned, the lunatics, some of whom I'm sure are lovely people. But aside from the lunatics, nobody believes that Joe Biden is a socialist. Nobody believes that he's going to kowtow to the squad. Nobody believes that he's going to enact Medicare for all, of his own accord. He might be forced into it by circumstances. He might be overcome by events, but it's not something he wants. It's not something he's ever going to champion. I mean, he's a decades-long champion of, attempts to cut Social Security, which, for a Democrat, that's just a moronic stance to take because old people vote, and you're talking about taking money out of their pockets, out of their bank accounts. They vote, So maybe it's a good thing. Like, the cynic in me wants to look for, why this is all a catastrophe, or why it's all a farce, or why it's all just a tempest in a teapot, which is distracting us from more important issues. But, there is that remnant of my 18, 19, 20-year-old new age self who wants to think, maybe we are threading the needle. Maybe we are walking that narrow path through all manner of calamities to deliver our country and industrial civilization and the peaceful global order, through a time of extreme peril into a period of greater sustainability and stability. Is it possible that we're on the right path? That we are, threading the needle? That we are weaving that very rare path through the minefield of history that is going to deliver us safely to the other side? If you refuse to entertain the possibility, why? If you insist that everything is going to shit, why? Why that insistence? I mean, just as an exercise, like as a sort of form of meditation. Maybe just, take all of your conviction that things are going to shit, pat it on the head, and say, stay. And then turn your attention in a different direction for a little while as an exercise and just consider, what if things are going well? What if we are transitioning through a period of extreme precariousness, but we're doing it with grace and dexterity and skill and, above all, blind luck? I'm willing to inhabit that headspace every now and again. All right, that's all. I'll talk to you again later. Stay well.